God bless you guys. How are you guys doing today? This has been something that I've been trying to shoot for a while, um, and share with you guys, but it's a little hard. It's something that us as men we hate to admit. We hate to admit that we're wrong sometimes. But I'm sharing with you guys a little bit about how destructive my marriage was before I came to Christ. And sometimes men, we don't care to understand that. We don't want to see what we're doing wrong. We don't want to hear our wives when they said that that's not the right thing to do. Because honestly, we don't want to be held accountable for the things that we do. We don't want God to hold us accountable for the things that we do. When I was a young man and when I first got married, I was a foolish kid. That's what I was. I didn't care for what God had brought together. I didn't care about the things that God had commanded us to do, such as love our wives. Love our wives as we love ourselves. Because if you love your wife, you love yourself. And if you love yourself, you'll feed yourself, you will nurture yourself. You'll take care of yourself. You'll want to pour into yourself. So if you love your wife, you'll do the same thing. You'll pour into them. You'll show them kindness just as you want to be shown kindness. But me, being the man I was before, I didn't care about nothing. I was a selfish man. I lived my life according to what I wanted to, not according to what God's will was. So I stepped out of my marriage. I stepped out of my marriage quite a few times. And I sought out the things of the world. I wanted to be a lustful man. I stepped out in adultery. I was a drunk, drug addict. But see, when you open the doors of sin, your sin will continue to grow, and new things will become fascinating to you. Because that's the way the devil works. So when I was out there in the world, all I did was care about myself. I didn't care about my family. I didn't care that I was hurting my family. I didn't care that I was hurting my wife. It wasn't until God removed the veil from my eyes that I started seeing what I was doing. And that's all because of my wife praying for me and fasting and asking God to remove the veil from my eyes. But when I was out there in the world, I slowly started seeing I was losing everything that was near and close to me because I was doing all this sin. I was doing all the things that I wasn't supposed to do. I was slowly losing everything that I loved. That's because I allowed the enemy in. I opened the door, I left the door wide open, and I allowed sin to control my life. So as I was out there in the world, I found myself in a bottomless pit. I had no job, I had no family, no friends, no money, no car. All these things because I allowed sin to take over my life. And before that, I had everything. I had my wife, my kids, my cars. I had my place where I lived. I had everything. I had money, everything, because we were trying to serve God at the time. But when you don't fully commit yourself to God, and you guys don't fully commit yourselves together, sin will always come in the door. If you start lacking in church, you start lacking in reading your word, you start lacking in praying, that's when the enemy starts slowly seeping into your lives. Don't give the enemy any room. Don't give the enemy any foot into your life. So when I was out there in the world and I was at the lowest point of my life, where I was full of sin and full of hurt and I was lonely, I had nothing, I had nobody, the Lord sent me a beautiful angel, and that beautiful angel was my wife. No matter what I was doing, she still loved me enough to care and ask me if I would come home. And that's God working in someone's life. That's a person that is led by the Spirit, not led by herself. Because if she was led by her flesh, she wouldn't have came and talked to me. So I knew God sent her. So when she came and talked to me, I said, yes, I'm done with this. Yes, I am. I'm done with living my life in sin. I love my family. I miss my family. That's how I was thinking. But at the time, I wasn't truly committed to coming back to church. So when I went back home with her, I was still drinking. I was still listening to bad music, watching bad things, being lustful still, and doing the things still of the world. But I was slowly but surely getting tired of it. It was starting to weigh on my heart and my mind, the things I was doing. And God was slowly speaking to me, telling me I need to remove these things from my life. So what I did as a man that was out in the world and wanted to become a man of God, I started removing each and everything that was a chain that was keeping me from being the man of God that God has called me to be, and the husband I was called to be, the family man that I was called to be, the father that God has called me to be. Because I would show my kids and my wife nothing but ugliness. I was an angry man, an angry husband, an angry father, a drunk husband, a lustful husband, an adulterous husband. All these things I was. But God slowly removed alcohol, slowly removed lying, slowly removed cussing, slowly removed all these things from me, because I was surrendering and I was trying every day to do right and walk in righteousness. It's hard to do that as a man. Don't get me wrong, women, men and women, brothers and sisters. It is hard to see what you're doing wrong, and it's hard to understand it, but you have to ask God to reveal those things to you. That way you can start slowly praying about those things and asking God to remove them from your lives. But you have to make sure that you move yourself and set apart from the world. Set yourself apart from the world. If you know guys, if you hang out with your buddies and you know those buddies ain't good for you because all they talk about is dirty women or going to the bars and stuff like that, remove yourself from those friends. Those are not your friends. Those are someone that's going to drag you back down into the world. If you know a movie's bad and you don't need to watch it and it's going to make you think about other women or have a lustful eye towards another woman, and instead of looking at your wife and seeing how beautiful she is and care about how much she cares about you and how she looks at you, remove those movies from your life. Don't watch those things. If you have a Facebook, Instagram, and all those things, and those things are becoming, and they're starting to make you think about other women, you need to remove those things from your life. A Christian man shouldn't have those things and a believer shouldn't have those things in your life anyways. All that social media stuff, all it does is corrupt your mind. If you say to yourself, it's okay, I can watch this without seeing those things, it's the lie from the enemy. Because as soon as you swipe one way and swipe another way, another woman can pop up. Another man can pop up for you women. So if you know that there's things that can corrupt your marriage, there are things of this world that can corrupt your marriage, you need to remove them. And you need to seek more things that are godly. You need to read your Bible more. You need to bring back the love that God has given you guys. Restore everything. Just like God has restored my marriage, that God has made the impossible possible. My marriage is a walking testimony and a miracle. And it's unbelievable what God has done in my marriage. God has made us so much stronger. The fast that we did together as a couple has made us more stronger than any other thing that's ever we try to do in our lives. Fasting for one another, praying for one another, asking God to restore that love that we once had for each other. Because it's only God. It's only God that can do that. If you sit here and you tell yourself that you can do this on your own, that's a lie from the pit of hell. God's the only one that can help a struggling marriage, that can mend a struggling marriage, that can pour in the love that needs to be in a marriage. If you love your wife, you will first love God, love Jesus Christ, and then God will help you to love your wife. It's funny that we think like we do love her, but you're not showing her kindness. You're not showing her You're not showing her affection. You're not being the man that you're supposed to be as a husband. You're not leading. You're allowing your wives to lead. Be the man that God has called you to be, brothers. Wives, be that woman that you are called to be for your husband. You're supposed to back them, help them in every way. Hold down the household. Know that let your husbands know that you're there through everything. Through everything. Listen to them when they're speaking about church or anything. Be there for them constantly. Show them love, show them kindness, show them affection. Be affectionate towards your husband. Your husband deserves your love just as much as you deserve his love. As a man that I was a man that didn't care about anybody but myself. But now God has shown me and has improved me in so many areas as a husband and in so many areas as a father. He's improved me and showing me how to love and be affectionate towards my wife, to lift my wife up, to show her acts of kindness, to be there for her when she's hurting, to pray for her when she needs prayer. God has shown me that, to speak to her with a loving heart when there's times are rough. I'm not saying, you guys, that there's not going to be arguments, there's not going to be things that are going to happen in your marriage. But I'm telling you, if you are on the verge of divorce or on the verge of leaving each other, don't give up. Have faith that God can restore anything. Know that your Father is the perfect Father, and He will do He'll make the impossible possible. We continue to doubt when there's so much that God has shown us already. Now, if He loves us that much, He's going to restore any marriage. You need to put your love and faith into God and show Him that you love Him, and He will help you to love your wife. He will help you to love your husband. He will restore. He will heal those scars that are on the heart. Those things that we do to each other, God can remove those. God can help you love again. Don't forget what He's already done for you already. The things that you already scarred before your spouse, the things that happened before your spouse, He's already healed those things. The things that we would pray for when someone was sick or something, you've seen those miracles happen. So don't tell me that God can't do it. Don't tell me that your marriage, you don't love her no more. The Bible commands you to love your wives. Loves your wives as you love yourself. The Bible commands you to do it. But if you believe that you can do it on your own, and you move on and you try to think the grass is greener on the other side, you're gonna find out that you're gonna wish that you would have stayed and stuck it out with your spouse. You're gonna wish that. And maybe your wife might not be as strong as my wife was. Maybe your wife won't have faith like that to hold on to what she thinks is the impossible. God made it possible. So I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, don't give up on your marriages. In these last days, that's what the enemy wants, is more divorce, is more division in the household, more division in the church. Hold on to what God has put together. God does not make mistakes. We're the ones that make mistakes. We start looking at things differently. We start looking at other women. We start looking at other men, and we think the grass is greener on the other side. It is not. Just because you are unhappy at the time doesn't mean it can't be fixed. God can fix anything. God can restore anything. A marriage is a beautiful thing that God puts together, just as beautiful as the blessings of our children that He gives us. We're truly called to be great, and we're called to be great with our spouse. Now my marriage is so beautiful. My wife is a leader of worship. I get to share the word every once in a while with brothers and sisters. I get to, instead of hurting people with my hands or my actions, I'm blessing people. I'm praying over people. I'm speaking to people at my work about what God can do in your life. I'm speaking to non-believers, people that don't don't understand, but they want to hear and they have an open ear to it, because God